Hi, and welcome to Drawing Lara Croft from Digital to Analog Part 4. So today we're going to be finishing the drawing. It's going to be the final drawing. Hi, my name is Escobar. I'm a storyboard artist in the Simpsons television show. I've been working on the show for over 25 years now, and I'm here to empower you. So the process so far, it has been I did the digital, then I inked it digitally, and then I printed out the digital to do some thumbnailing, work out the colors with marker so that I knew what I was going to do once I actually did the final. And now it's time to do the final. So what I've actually done is I've printed out the black borders. I left it black, but the figure itself, I reduced the opacity on it. I turned it blue, so it's kind of like a non-photo blue, so you can't really see it too much. And that I'm going to hand ink, and then I'm going to color it. So we're going to watch the entire process sped up, and I'm going to talk about it and explain it to you. And if you want to watch it in real time, I will talk about that later. So let's get started. All right, so there you see that you could very lightly see the light blue that I've done on the of the figure. And now I am taking a micron. This micron is a 005 micron, so it's extremely thin. It's very tiny. So what I'm doing here is I'm inking it. I'm doing a what I call a dead line pass. It's really thin pass. The reason I'm choosing this micron is because it won't be affected by the marker. It's permanent, so the alcohol in the marker is not going to mess it up. I'm also doing a very thin pass simply because I need borders. I need a place of reference so that I can start doing the coloring. This is not the final ink line. This is only a temporary ink line that will help me see the figure so I could color it. Later on, I will go back and color, re-ink it and add some more finessed lines. The reason I do this is because the marker tends to bleed. I might go over some edges and that sort of thing. And just in case the ink somehow something happens to the ink, I'm able to go over it again and do a much thicker pass. So once it's all colored in, all inked, it's time to start adding all the colors. So notice that I left areas of the skin white. This is the highlights. You have to plan out the highlights before you do anything else so that you know where not to color, so that you know where the lightest areas are going to be. And that is why the thumbnail process is really important, because then you could plan out ahead of time where you're going to leave it white and where it looks right to leave it white. There's no guesswork after that. The secondary pass here is I added some blush on the cheeks, and now I'm adding a little bit more of a form shadow around the skin. So that's a little bit thicker, a little bit darker line. So it's form shadow. It gives it a little bit more roundness as it goes into the light. So that's what I'm doing here. And so keeping in mind that I will eventually draw a shadow layer on top, which is what I've already planned out on my thumbnails, which is the reason, again, to thumbnail the thing so that you know exactly where you're going before you go and do it. And so right now I put in a base color. Here's the base color for the shirt. I believe this is a neutral 1 gray marker for the base. And then this is mocha. It's a very light brown, and I'm going to use mocha on pretty much every brown in the drawing. And once again, here I'm leaving space for the highlights. So I'm working out the highlights first, and then I color in the rest. Again, it's super important especially in the planning stages, to decide where all your lights are going to be, where your highlights are going to be, way ahead of time before you do anything else. Which is again the reason why the thumbnail process is so important. You have to have a roadmap of how you're going to approach the thing, because there is no undo, there is no going back, and the only way that I would be able to add highlights after the fact is with a gouache paint or acrylic paint, just painting over it. And now I'm just adding the border for no other reason than just to add it now. I could have added it at the very end, but I'm doing it now. It doesn't matter when I added this color. This video actually took a couple of days to record. It's a 2-hour long video, full speed. If you want to watch the full speed video, you can by going to my Patreon. There's a link in the description of this video for the full speed version. All you have to do is become a patron at the most minimal level and you can watch it. Oh, okay, so here now I'm adding a little bit more color into the hair, adding a little bit more finesse. So I did the mocha bottom layer just to have, in case there's going to be a little bit of a peak of light as it goes into the a light tone as it goes into the highlight, I wanted that color to exist. And that, what I'm basically doing is I'm creating a gradient by layering these colors. So I'm not, so this is a darker brown. I forgot what brown I was using, but the entire point here is not to go all the way to the edge, not to go all the way to the highlight, but to, you know, give it a stair step. So there's the highlight, and then there's the mocha, and then there's the lighter brown, and then there's the darker brown. So each one I go a little bit less, not as close to the highlights with each layer, and it gives that effect of having a gradient and having roundness. Here I'm adding blush to all the skin. There's two reasons why you want skin to get redder as it gets darker. One of the reasons is because your muscles are under the skin. Your skin is translucent, and your muscles are red. So what you're kind of implying is that there's red muscle under the skin. Also, there is I forgot subsurface scattering. Subsurface scattering is something that occurs in translucent material, and when subsurface scattering happens, it becomes warmer. Like the lights become more yellow or more redder or more orangey, and skin is no different. So it instead of getting dark in gray, skin sometimes becomes vibrantly red, which is the reason why I'm doing red. And I'm adding red here on the nose and on the cheeks because of the blush. This area of the face often has a little bit more red tint to it, so it feels more natural when it's a little bit redder there. Now I'm adding a blue layer of shadow, and the reason that's blue is for two reasons. One, you could imply that the shadow, maybe there's a pool nearby and the light is bouncing off the blue pool and coming in and making that underside of her skin, underside of her blue. But also, I'm also thinking about the temperature of the shadows. I want the shadows to be cooler than the warmth of the skin. So those are the two reasons why I decided to go with blue. Blue is a cool color, and so I colored everything as I often try to add a tint of coolness to my shadows, because I usually tend to make anything in the light warm. And shadows don't necessarily have color unless some sort of light from down below is bouncing into the shadows, tinting the shadows. So this is another day, which is the reason why there's a camera change. I put the camera above, and now here you see me adding some of the final touches of color, which is I'm taking the mocha marker again, and I'm putting dirt on her. So it's just kind of randomly kind of putting the dirt. But as you can see, all this was all done in layers. And now I got a much thicker Copic. I think this is a 0.5 Copic. I'm not sure, but I'm putting a thick outline just like I did in the digital version. I'm putting a thick outline all around the figure with the Copic. And the Copics, what's good with them is that it does give you that dead line. It doesn't give you a thick and thin line. It gives you a very straightforward dead line, which is useful for this sort of thing here that I'm doing, which is doing like an outline, a graphic outline of the figure. And it's actually the digital equivalent is what I used when I did the digital version. Now I have a brush, and brushes give you a much more nuanced line. It gives you much more of a thick and thin line. And now I'm applying that to the eyes and the blacks of the eyes, and I switched to this pen because it gives me a little bit more control. The other one gave me very fine finesse control. This one also gives me a lot of control too. I'm more comfortable using this particular pen, and I have two versions of these pens. I have this Pentel Pocket Pen. I have two copies. This one I had to mark. If you see look very closely, it's got white out on the cap, and that's because this is the good one. I have two. This one gives me really fine control. The other one is really bad. It doesn't give me as fine control. I don't know what's wrong with the difference in the tips, but this one is a better pen than the other one. Even though they're the exact same pen, this one works better than the other version I've got. So I discovered the hard way that the quality isn't the same in every single. So if I ever was to lose this pen or this pen got messed up somehow, it's going to be really difficult to find another one that works exactly like this one did. So I'm adding more finesse, adding thickness in the bottom parts, adding more of a nuanced thick and thin to the line. It just gives it more character, gives it more texture, and it implies shadow just on the line alone. And then I go in, and if there's anything that I still needed a little bit of a thick and thin into, I did put that in there. And here I'm adding a little bit more, another layer of mocha on top of the dirt to make it just make it thicker, and so you could see it more. And now it's just finessing, just like tiny little bits, whatever that little moments or pieces that I'm missing, I'm adding just final finishing touches to the drawing. And that is it. That is the entire drawing. It is complete. It is done. And that's what it ended up looking like. I highly recommend you go and look at the full non-sped up video. And as I've said it over and over in these videos, I know that this video is sped up. So the problem with that is if you don't know what it looks like real time, it doesn't help. You could see it sped up, and you could know that it's sped up. But when you're going to draw something, you get frustrated because it's not as fast a process as you may think it is, because you have no frame of reference of how long it actually is supposed to take. No frame of reference of how long how it looks like actually doing it in real time, because the only reference you've got is the sped up video, which is sped up, but since you have no other frame of reference, you're still going to think that you're being too slow. That somehow, even though that the sped up video is sped up, you still think that the process is supposed to be taking longer. And this is not necessarily the case, which is the reason why you also need a real-time version, so that you could actually see how long it actually takes to actually do it and what it looks like at real-time, non-sped up. And then you could also clearly see the process at work, and it's a lot less frustrating. You can slow down, you can relax, and you can say, okay, this is how it's humanly possible to do these things. And the other reason why it's important to be able to look at the real-time video, and there is a version of the real-time video, and I don't expect you to watch the whole two-hour thing, but using this sped up video, what you can do is look for the spots where you're wondering how I did something or how long it took to do X, Y, and Z. And so what you can do is fast forward to that area and just look at that section for however long you want to look at it. So that's another reason why a full video is helpful. And so again, you could look at the full video by going to the link in the description of this video. There's the link to the real time, and if you can't access it, you can do so by becoming a patron at the lowest level, which is $1, and you could watch that in full at full speed. All right, so thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye.